everyone, welcome back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to be building a river. So this project is, it's like all my other projects. They're kind of in the back burner and wanted to get to. A while back, I built a kind of a centerpiece terrain for Fire in the Frontier. And it kind of had a rocky facing and a river that ran through it and a broken tree. And I always wanted to use that as a centerpiece for my game table. But I wanted the river to continue on after it. So I knew at some point I would make some kind of river tile. And I don't know why I haven't built a river yet. I mean, it's something that a lot of battle tables have. It's a pretty common piece of terrain, I would think, that would be on a game table. And I just never got around to doing it. I've been kind of perfecting my technique of using water effects, and I've kind of built a few projects now with it on there, and I feel like, you know what, now's the time to get it done. This is a very generic piece of terrain. Would work great for the new upcoming Blood and Crowns. I mean, which is great. I want to build some more terrain for that. I can see building an old village by this creek or river. And really kind of flush that out. Blood and Steel for my Zulu map. Of course, there could be a river running through that, plains, all those kind of things. I think a feature of the pictures is more Blood and Plunder, Fire in the Frontier, but this really is extremely generic. It's just a river. I didn't really add trees to the actual sections. I did in the centerpiece. Mainly because I could add maybe palm trees and make it more like a jungle. You can just add kind of accessories onto it to make it look like a different part of the world. So that's kind of why I just left it plain. So let's take a look at the finished product, and then we can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So this is it right here. This is one piece of it. Now, you could make these much smaller, into smaller sections. I made it kind of a little bit larger, mainly because I wanted to kind of match the other piece I already built. I made the two ends on it, so I have a second piece, and this end fits onto the other second piece, and then the other end was customized for that centerpiece I built. So I kind of built, it can be used as just one river on its own, or it can be attached to that centerpiece, so I kind of wanted to make it interchangeable. In the future, I'll probably add other ones on here and maybe make a fork in the river and stuff like that, but that's down the road. So this is just kind of one image of it. This is the one piece. And let's just grab that other piece over here. And, it's pretty much the same, just a little bit on there. Now, I made some, you can see shallows in here on both of them. Just kind of that's where you can pass through it, where it's shallow enough for the miniatures to cross through. I know in Blood and Plunder you can't go through water, but this is considered shallow, so you can go through that. So I wanted to have a few ways to cross the river. I do have a bridge that I built, and I want to build a bridge in the future for Blood and Valor. They have a nice bridge scenario in there that, I can incorporate this river in there. There's lots of future projects that can be added on there. So I thought this was a good basis point. And I really want to do a series of different water feature videos where we do different kind of things. Maybe some swampland would be really cool. I still wanted to build that witch's hut in the swamp kind of thing for my pirate port. Never really got around to that, but that would be a great water feature as well, a different kind of water feature. So those are things that, I got rattling around up there that I want to do in the future. But we'll start with these river tiles. All right, if you guys like what we're doing here in the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I start these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table, let's start painting, and let's start crafting. Okay, as always, let's go through some of the supplies I used to do this project. We got some packing foam that I had left over still. I got some insulation foam, some dry decks, drywall compound. This is Art Mines. It's a blue waterscape. I got that from Michael's. I ordered it online. I don't think they carry it in the store anymore, but you can get it online still. And dollar store foam board. So these are pretty well the main ingredients we're going to need for this. So that's that centerpiece I was talking about that I built in a previous episode. And you can see I kind of made two sides to fit perfectly in there. And then I kind of made a straight side. So the straight fits to the edge of the table, which is great. But also I measured it out so that they connect to each other. So just in case I just want to do just a river on a smaller game table, I could just do that instead of having that centerpiece. Centerpiece looks more North American, so that way I can avoid that by having a different type, right? So I started off by cutting this packing foam, and really just cutting into smaller, rounder shapes. And these are just going to be like mass of mud or stone or whatever. And I'm going to put some foliage on just to kind of build up my edges of my water. And you can see I sanded them up a little bit. We're going to add drywall compound to the top of these, which gives us kind of lots of interesting textures and stuff to paint on. You got some of the, left some of the foam exposed, and some of it's got drywall compound on it. So you really get a whole bunch of different types of textures. So I'm just kind of planning it out on the edge here. I kind of fiddled around with this for a while. I made some of the river wider at certain spots and thinner where I wanted to have a walkway or like a pathway through. So I was just kind of planning that out. So then I used some white tacky glue and just glued them down once I was happy with the configuration. So then these are insulation foam bricks that I've cut. So I've got different sizes here. And I just kind of cut them out into different shapes, more stone shapes. I got large ones, medium ones, small ones. Then I threw my trusty coffee tin here with rocks, shook them up for about 2-3 minutes. Some of the bigger stones, I used a tinfoil ball afterwards just to even add more texture and beat up some of the edges more, just to give it a little more round. And then this is kind of the fun part, just kind of planning out, where things are going to be. So you kind of just add your little foam stones, and I kind of decided that that's where I wanted them to be able to walk across. And so I'm going to add a few stones into the riverbed itself, and then just kind of filled in the sides and the edges. So this is after I've added all my foam bricks and the packing foam and all that stuff. And I kind of, happy with that configuration. Really, like I said in the intro, you can do these in smaller. You don't have to do these giant ones that I'm doing. I just kind of filled the table quickly, but you could make smaller versions of these, right? So I'm just showing you the black craft paint. I'm going to put a layer of black craft paint on here first, just so it counters any warping that may happen. I paint both sides before I even add the drywall compound. Drywall compound's pretty wet, and you're going to slap it on there, and it might warp it a little bit. But if you seal it all in with this black craft paint first, you're in good shape. So it'll hold its shape, and then you can start adding that over top because it won't bleed into the dollar store foam board. Now, you could use hardboard or anything else, but I like foam because it's nice and lightweight, easy to move around. This is not a heavy piece of terrain. And once you add the resin and stuff on there, it's pretty solid. It holds its shape really well. So I'm not too worried about it, so the strengths of it. So you can see I had my little dollar store tool there, that white putty knife, and I just this is kind of a messy part. There's no getting around it. I use my finger, I use that tool. You kind of smear it all over the place. I didn't cover everything, not covering the stones, just kind of the packing foam areas, the riverbed, and you kind of see I put grooves in there, and that's going to be the waves in the water, or the current. Per se, and just really kind of sanding off some of the rough edges on here. This is after it's dried. I let it dry for an entire day, by the way, 24 hours. Now it's pretty solid, and it's good to go to sand up. And then we're going to cover it again with black craft paint. So we're going to seal in all the drywall compound that we just put down, and get it all into one coherent piece. And here we go. So it's all solid. You got all our nice little texture on there. It's hard as a rock. And it's ready to start adding other things to it. So we're going to do our basic undertones. We got some real brown here. I'm going to cover everything up with that. And then I did the bottom two. I did the two first brown colors. I cover the bottom of the board. Really, that's actually just exposed. Well, it's not really exposed, but we covered it a few layers of craft paint on the bottoms of them, but really you don't have to paint it if you didn't want to. And then there's a bark brown. That's the lighter brown color, and like you've seen me before, these are all the undertones that I've always used. This is all folk art craft paint, great for this kind of terrain. So just showing you how it looks after the bark brown. And you can see I didn't touch everything, just kind of a little bit of here, a little bit of there. and just kind of covers a little bit of everything. So then we get the Pablo. That's my bright orange earth tone that I like to use. And we're going to hit a few areas in here, some of the riverbed, some of the around the stones areas, but not really the big stones. I'm not going to put as much of the orange on there, maybe a little bit. So you can see I just kind of a little bit of highlight on everything, just to add a nice little richness and brighter color to everything. Now, the only thing I kind of regret is looking down there, when I used that putty knife, I actually carved a little bit too thick, I think, in some of those areas. I've done it in the past where I just did it with my finger, and I should probably just stick to that because the grooves wouldn't be that much on the waves. Your finger is sufficient. You don't need to use that tool. So there's a couple areas that are maybe too deep, but it's solid already. So now I moved on to the camel, and we're going to hit all our stonework with that. Bottom edges of those pack and foam areas. You can see we just kind of... And I want to add it a little bit to where the walkway is, kind of the shallows, implying that maybe there's some sand or something like that. The ground is a little taller. When we put the resin over top, it'll capture all those colors underneath. So now we're going to go to desert yellow, skeleton bone, necrotic flesh, and mummy robe. Those are the 4 colors I use for my stonework. The mummy robe I didn't do to the very end. I've added all these other speed paints. So do the first 3 colors, did all the stonework, and then I went on to putting up some speed paints. So this is hardened leather, paladin bone, Zealand yellow, and malignant green. I probably messed that up. Anyways. It's the kind of the lighter green speed paint. I think there's only a dark and a light green, but it's good for putting the algae and stuff like that on rocks. Then we got Skeleton Horde, Agrax Earth Shader, the one I can never say, Supia. And I like this texture paint, Sterling Mud. That's a really good, it's got a thick texture. It looks like real mud. It's an awesome texture paint. I've used it on a few different projects on the channel here. All right, so this is after I've added those stone colors in, really. I haven't added really pretty much anything else. I've just kind of stopped here just so you can see what it looks like in stages. And then I'm moving into some of these speed paints. And really what I'm doing here is just kind of darkening, where the stones overlap or they're side by side. It would be a little dirtier and mustier in here. And this is just really about building up lots of layers. Don't try not to cover the entire stones. We're just adding a little bit on there. And remember, we're going to do that mummy robe at the very end to highlight the whole thing. So even if we go a little too crazy on some of these colors, we can go back and mute it out by adding just more highlights of the mummy robe. So this is after I've added those speed paints. I use that Zealand yellow kind of in the sandy area on the, on the shoreline here and where the shallows are. It came out really good. I like that speed paint color. Like I said, I've been really moving towards using speed paints for adding highlights to terrain for sure. So now we got our deep blue here, ultramarine blue. And we're going to use some dark stone and some commando green. So really these are our darkest colors of our riverbed. And they should be in the middle. Some of the green might be closer to the edges of the shoreline. Maybe there's some algae and plant life that's underneath the water, just under the water line. So we're going to add some of those colors in. So then we got this Hydra turquoise. This is Void Shield blue. It's really bright, and we got crystal blue. Those are going to be our edges of our water. And then I moved to using this High Lord blue speed paint, and really I'm just using that to blend the darks with the lights, and it kind of eliminates some of the lines between the two. If you're just stark lines between the bright and the dark blue, this kind of just transitions the two better. So, of course, I start with these 3 darker colors first. I really put that dark stone on. You can see the grays in the middle. And we're just kind of adding it on here. I kind of wanted to show a little bit of how I painted on here. I usually just kind of pass over and just show you the colors, but just kind of show you how I apply it. It's just a smaller brush I'm using, a smaller square brush. And I'm really just applying some of those dark colors in here right now, sticking to the center of the piece. I'm assuming that's the deepest part of the river. So, and then I kind of just barely touch the shallows here, just to imply some blue in there. Maybe some blue highlights that are in there, but still kind of keeping more of the sandy earth tones underneath. So when we put the resin over, it looks like there's a higher ground there. So we're kind of building depth within the riverbed without actually, digging something deep in there. I kind of really don't want to build my water terrain where I'm actually dumping a bunch of resin into like a cavern or something like that I've built out of foam. That requires a lot of resin for one thing. It looks great for sure. But on a tabletop game where you just want to have flat surfaces, I think this is the way to go. I don't think adding high three-dimensional kind of really tall water terrain on there, unless you're doing the entire game table in this foam and you're actually cutting trenches and stuff out of it, I can see that. But if you're just adding accessories onto it, it just makes sense to do it on a flat surface and just kind of imply that there's some depth there. And that's all we're doing here. Now, some of these colors are really bright, and the river probably wouldn't be this bright blue. But like I said, I like to look pretty bright from the tabletop. So I'm just showing you all the lighter blues that we talked about earlier. And you can see I've already started, and we're just going to hit some of the edges. You can see some of the green that I added there, for that commando green, just kind of more in the shoreline. And we're just touching the edges. It's okay if you get a little bit of blue up on the stone. We're going to add white, some titanium white craft paint afterwards. That's really just going to be the waves and stuff like that, and the water crashing on the edges of the riverbed. Some maybe white foam and stuff. So it's okay if it's a little bit messy. Try to stay in the lines, but you don't have to. So I'm just showing you a little bit more of that. Again, just spending a little more time on showing you exactly how I apply the paint. I just thought it would be a little more interesting than the previous ones where I didn't show this aspect of it. And I've never actually done a shallow like this before. So, but I just assumed that this would be the best way to kind of... Like right now, it actually looks kind of like a shallow right now, even with that little bit of blue added to the top of it. But really, when you add that resin to it, it looks really good. I like how that effect looks. So now we're going to move to that High Lord blue speed paint. And I'm just going to show you what I mean by kind of blending together. So you got kind of a stark light blue, and then you got really kind of a dark blue and some grays. So this kind of just, I use this to just kind of blend it all together. So kind of just like it melds into each other opposed to some stark lines. I mean, you can use you don't really need to use the speed paint. You could just use the paints and mix them together as, keep the paint wet and mix them that way. But I kind of like the way the speed paint reacts to the other paints and kind of blends it all together. Got this interesting look. So we're going to continue painting here. Again, just showing you more of what I've been doing here. So the speed paint's a new thing that I've been adding to it, and I like the way. So this is after it's pretty well done, and I'm pretty happy with the undertones I've gotten in there. I got some depth in there. The edges look lighter, and we're in good shape. So now we're going to move on to the resin. So this is Art Minds Blue Waterscape. Again, like I mentioned, is Michael sells it, craft store. Easy to use. Stuff's really easy. I just squirt little blobs everywhere. So we're not going crazy. We're not filling this up with, like I did in my one terrain piece and put like shields up and stuff like that. You don't need to. I find that less is better. We added all the depths and all the cool undertones already by painting it. And we're just using this to gloss it up, shine it up, make it look like wet water. And it's a blue resin, so it even adds more depth to the blueness we've already added on here. And you just get I got my junky brush, my scrap brush that I use just for the resin. And just pour it over. and just kind of spread it out. If you have not enough in a certain area, just put another dablet in there. And really, this one bottle can go a long way. I can get a lot of terrain pieces done. I've already done several large projects with that one bottle, doing this same technique. And really, you save yourself some trouble with the headache with the resin, worrying about it spilling out everywhere, and you get a pretty decent effect, I would say. From this is after it's been drying for a while. You can see you got that shallows. Everything looks great. I'm really happy with this kind of technique, and I'll probably continue using it this way, especially for tabletop gaming. You want just a flat piece of terrain. This makes sense to do it this way. All right, so now we're going to add some foliage. So now that we've pretty well everything's dried, the resin's all taken care of. Now we're going to start moving on to adding some foliage to this. So I'm going to start off with my dollar store. It's really just, here, I got the label here. This is, $1.50, really cheap. This is at the Dollar Tree. They sell this. And I just use a pair of my fabric scissors and cut it up to make it nice and small like this. So that took us some time. But once you cut up a batch like that, that's one bag. And really, the bag looks small when you get it, but once you cut it down, it looks pretty good. So now I'm going to use that tall kind of grass and bushes and stuff that I got from Adepticon. I'm really going to go crazy with this. But really, you don't have to have all these tufts and stuff. You could just use that dollar store stuff. Moss. They have other colors too, so you could add different colors in there. But since I got all that stuff from Adepticon, it's time to put some of this stuff into use. So I got a lot of stuff from huge miniatures here, a bunch of different types of grasses. This is my favorite kind of gravel that I use from Army Painter. It's a battleground, kind of a rocky terrain. And we got all sorts of tufts. I'm going to use this floral tufts that I've been wanting to use. Again, more stuff that I got at Adepticon. And really just going to add a whole bunch of different... The more plant life you add to it, the better. So I decided to use the mossy first and kind of just went around the edges of the bases of these rocks. And you can see I added a couple tufts in there and some stones. Just add a little bit of everything in there. And that's kind of what the riverbed would look like. There would be all sorts of different plant life and rocks and stones and little grasses. And now I've used some of the bigger grasses on top. Some of these different types of stuff that I had, more tufts. There's some flowers I had. It just kind of adds to the whole thing, right? That one I decided to put more moss on it. Whatever you decide. This is your creative time to decide what you want to put for plant life. So I'm really happy with these walkways and entranceways for, the shallows, let's call them. I call them walkways. It's not like a crosswalk. But anyways, you can see I just added some more tufts in there. And I'm just showing you different stages. So this is pretty much a wrap on this. I've already got all the plant life I want. And again, I just stuck to shrubbery. I didn't go to big trees and stuff like that because I want it to be very generic. So we can add this terrain piece to all sorts of game tables. So there's my full cart white titanium paint. This is usually what I use for adding a little foam in the water on the edges of the shorelines. And then we got those nice ridges that we added from the drywall compound. And we're going to put some of these in here. Some implied current. When you see the water, I know, because the resin's so shiny, it's got glistening from the lights in the room. It looks like it already has kind of waves on it, but add some more to it by adding the white on there. So this is after I've completed all that. These pieces are complete. Before I wanted to get to the game table, I just wanted to show you them on their own. Really happy with these. They look really great. I mean, they're larger, and I'm okay with that. They fit my entire game table, and I custom build them. But you could cut those with Dollar Store foam board. You can really cut it in any shape you want, and just use the same general techniques, and you can build whatever river configuration you want to do. So we got our native village here. There's a good opportunity to crack out my village again. Take a quick pass through there, and really that centerpiece is there from the original piece that I built and my original idea that I finally gotten back to it. So it's been over a year. But now I can finally see it all together. Now you'll see the difference in the color. So these are just by glazing it. Now the one I did in the middle, I actually poured a whole bunch of resin in it. You can see how deep and dark it is. That's because I poured so much in there and I put shields up. And well, if you watch that video, it was kind of somewhat of a disaster, but it turned out pretty good. I really like this method much better. It's much easier to do. It's not messy, and you get really good results with it. So I'm pretty happy with this overall results of this entire project. I look forward to doing other water features in the future. So let's just get a look on the other side here. Just wanted to show you the other side here. I know some people have made the comments that the canoe's too big. Well, let's pretend that this stream goes to a lake. Because, obviously that canoe is too big for this river, but they portage it down the river to the lake. All right, so that's pretty much a wrap on this project. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.